Before we start this show, just a word from our sponsor, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest that pro wrestling has had to offer. Along with their awesome line of pro wrestling apparel, they do offer many services. In the world of wrestling, there are hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads. Don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. If you would like to discuss possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or whatever, drop them a line. Go to 20 by 20 Apparel. That's the number 20x, the number 20 apparel.com. Now, let's get to the show.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bummy, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what are those. You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grind and shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all. Cause it's nothing to me, it's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop it tomorrow. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. I tell I'm running out of breath, I tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh, fresh, goddammit, we fresh.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And on Fresh is the Word, we like to deliver wisdom through great stories from the minds of bright creatives of pop culture. Through those stories, we like to dissect the journey of our guests and present actionable lessons and advice for our listeners, no matter what career or avenue of artistry they pursue. And before we get into this episode, I want to give a shout out to Knox Money, Bang Belushi, and Foulmouth for the theme music for Fresh is the Word. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can always go to freshisthepodcast.com and just share any of the links for any of the episodes on any of your social media platforms. And also, you can subscribe to Fresh is the Word pretty much anywhere that podcasts are streamed. And that includes Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, pretty much everywhere. And please rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts. It will definitely help out the show. If you want to contact me, you can always reach me by email at djkfresh@gmail.com. Or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at KFresh is the Word, and on Facebook at facebook.com/KFresh. And you can also follow Fresh is the Word on Twitter at Fresh is the Word, and that's is with an IZ, Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, and Facebook at facebook.com/Fresh is the Podcast. And this is episode 165, and the guest for this episode is Mark Slaughter, lead singer and guitarist of the legendary hard rock band Slaughter, and previously the frontman for the Vinnie Vincent Invasion. Slaughter also works as a voiceover actor and composes music for television, movies, and sports outlets, along with still touring with Slaughter and releasing his own solo albums. And this is like a bucket list interview for me. Like, this is mind-blowing because I loved Slaughter's Stick It To Ya that had Up All Night and Fly to the Angels on it, like when I was a kid. I used to play that tape so much, so this was like a treat, and Mark Slaughter was awesome to talk to. He's such a good guy. You know, during our chat, we talked about the making of Stick It To Ya and why it became so popular. Also transitioning from the 80s into the 90s as a hard rock band, touring today, having multiple avenues of artistry, how he became a musician, his time in the Vinnie Vincent Invasion, advice for artists trying to break into their craft, whatever it is, working with his longtime collaborator, Dana Strum, his voiceover work, and why the music he's made still resonates today. Before we get into this interview with Mark Slaughter, definitely want to remind you that how you can support Fresh is the Word is by contributing to our Patreon at patreon.com/freshtheword. And for as little as $1, you can help out with whatever I'm trying to do here. It does take a lot, well, a little bit of a lot, to help maintain everything, and it could be a little bit easier if you, help out a brother. And for the $3 a month tier, I dig deep into my audio archives of interviews that I've done outside Fresh is the Word for over the past decade for other publications. Some I never even used. We have a few up right now. I'm definitely going to be posting a bunch more coming up. I also posted a few other like DJ mixes and stuff like that, other digital goodies that I've done. So please go to patreon.com/freshtheword. Check out all the pledge tiers. There's even a few where you can be a part of the podcast, and that would help out a lot. So enough of that. Let's get on to the interview with Mark Slaughter. This is such a bucket list interview for me, because when I was a kid, Slaughter's Stick It To You was such an important album for me. I was 9 years old and I was listening to that like crazy.
Wow, that's great. It's funny, music is such an impactful thing in all of our lives. It's one of those things you just go, man, that's just crazy, because I know how it is when I've met people that music has been a big part of my life as well. So it's kind of wild to chat with people, the soundtrack to your life, It's all good.
Yeah, definitely. We're, coming up on 30 years since that album came out. When you look back at that time, Slaughter coming out of the Vinnie Vincent Invasion, what was sort of your feelings about making that album? What really sticks out to you?
I think the main thing is when we were doing the record was to make songs that were, we were realizing, it was more about the songwriting than it was of an example of look what I can do and look at how I can play, and we really just wanted to write songs. So I think that was for me, it was the first time that it was just, showing songwriting abilities, and Dana, and I doing the production stuff. It was self-produced. We're the only band from our genre at that time that was allowed to, really make our own record. We wrote it and produced it and still play it for this day. And I don't think anybody else from our genre was able to do all that. So it was a complete blessing. I mean, everybody's doing it nowadays, but, back in 1989 when we were actually tracking, we were the only band doing that.
Why do you think they had so much faith in you to just let you guys do it?
Well, we kind of held a bargain line, which is, we had some demos that we did where they knew what they had, and we just said, look, don't start sending us a producer in here to screw this up. Let us be writers and record this, that way. And our demos were pretty elaborate. Even when I'm making music nowadays, it's like demos that turn into masters. Then we actually re-recorded everything, but it was that whole mindset of just really making it sound good from the beginning.
Do you feel like that sort of rawness of that sort of, you guys got to do whatever you wanted to do, focused on making good songs is the reason why that album was so liked by so many?
I think it was a time. I think there's an element of a lot of things. There was radio in place at that time. There was, MTV was actually playing videos, and there's many aspects that kept that to something that would connect. Radio was important. Everybody would listen to radio at that time, and there was one place that you could hear music and learn about music. And nowadays you're dealing with a attention deficit society, which everybody just kind of point and clicks on everything. If they don't like it within 1.5 seconds, they move on to something else. So, that's just how fast the world goes. It's just a much faster society than it was, but it also means that we're never focused on, hey, Slaughter's coming into town with Kiss, and go out and check out the show. People are like, oh, wow, okay, there's a party. So they knew the circus was coming into town. They knew that there was something special.
You guys are making this album at the end of the 80s and comes out in 90. This is, there's definitely going to be a shift in rock music when grunge hits. Did you feel any sort of shift going on in the music industry at that time?
Well, we were told there was a new programmer at MTV that worked at a station out of LA called K-Rock.
Right.
And which is an alternative station. It was the first alternative station in the nation. And their whole thing was to play things that were not commercial, not the typical thing. And so all of a sudden there's a guy who is the president of MTV that was the previous programmer of K-Rock, who goes in and says, I will no longer play bands like Motley Crue. I'll never play bands like Poison or Slaughter, and started listing, many of our bands from our ilk. And that was it. They stopped playing us. So the shift was also from the biggest radio station, which is MTV, that they consciously said that we're not going to play these bands. And the radio stations followed suit. So it's not like everybody's like, oh, Nirvana did this and it was this. No, it's secular. There's every 10 years, every decade, there's always a shift in music. There was kind of the 60s music that when the Beatles came. There's always something that comes in and shakes it up a bit.
At that time, though, at the end of the 80s, did you have any sort of just inkling where the industry would go next? When you're, going from the Vinnie Vincent Invasion to Slaughter, what was your thoughts about what the 90s had in store?
Well, we held the record. We actually had the record finished in the middle of 1989, and we told the record label we wanted to hold it till 90 because we didn't think that they had their marketing intact at that point. We wanted to wait and market it properly. I mean, bottom line is, in anything that you do, you want to make sure that it's known and people, are aware of it. And, looking back on that, it was a, pretty bold and smart move from young guys that were, running the ship. It was just something very different. Thinking about the marketing plan more than we just need to get this music out and play. I mean, it was definitely biting your lip on that one.
You guys had, several hit singles from that album: Up All Night, Spend My Life, Mad About You, Fly to the Angels. These are songs that, rock fans from that time still, remember. When was the first, inkling that this band Slaughter might actually work out for at least the time being, that this album might actually have some legs on it?
Well, what happened was when we released the record, it was already, kind of leaked out to the radio stations. It was already getting a really good fan response. MTV said they wouldn't play Up All Night because they thought it was too sexist at that time. They were starting, because we had girls in the video, so they didn't like the video. And, I think there was a whole movement going on at that point of stop objectifying women. And then they decided that the rock bands couldn't have any, girls in their video. And then, of course, the rap stuff comes in and they pretty much, started putting girls in their videos. And then they played that. So it's crazy. I don't understand that, but that's kind of how it went. It's, getting back to the videos and all that, it was all songs that did resonate with people. It was something that I think that was a, how should I put it? I think that it was the soundtrack of what people were listening to at that time. It was upbeat. It was very positive. I mean, in that time, I think everybody had a different mindset. I mean, we didn't have the crazy stuff that's going on in our world today as we have. You know, I don't know how people find music or how they can, find it. It's just crazy because it's just so scattered and fragmented. But we were really lucky. We had the songs, and the songs connected to people. And is there really a magic button that makes anything happen? No, it's a lot of timing. It's a lot of, being an artist. It's just the same thing when the things started to change. When the grunge era came in, we continued to play. We didn't stop. We never stopped. Okay, now's a good time to go make money. Let's put the band back together. We continued.
How do you think you were able to just continue on, after, radio stations like K-Rock were like, we're not going to play bands like Slaughter anymore. You guys did 5 albums in the 90s. What sort of, why didn't you guys stop? What was, the reasoning behind all that?
I think it's the same reason why I still make solo records right now, even though it's like, it doesn't really, people are not even aware of it. It's just the point, if you're an artist, you create art. And if you play music, you play music. It's what you do. It's not like something that is the money changes. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with things. Like, right now I'm about to put out a single that, of a song called Glamour Girl that I wrote with a gentleman named Mike Himmel, amazing guitar player. And, it really boils down to this. You make music, you continue to grow, you continue to collaborate with other people and do things if that's in your, in your DNA. And, I can't stop on that just because it's not a good money grab.
Over the past, probably, 5 to 10 years, you definitely seen the rise of, big festivals, rock festivals in the U.S. and abroad. And, they have a lot of different bands from different generations. And, Slaughter is still touring. You're even doing shows with, some of the other bands that you had. How has the touring been for you over the years? And how has that, have you been able to take advantage of that festival circuit?
There's festivals that pop up here and there. We're doing Rocklahoma this year on a Thursday night. And we've done Sweden Rock Fest. We've done quite a few of them. And, it's an amazing, again, those are amazing because you really get a chance to hear music from not just, especially overseas, you hear music from all around the world instead of just, what's on your radio dial. But, it's a great blessing. I mean, we've been able to continue touring. I'm playing a show in New Mexico this weekend. I leave for that tomorrow. And then, back home the next day. Then I have a quick turnaround, head off to Tucson, then I head off to Utah. I mean, I haven't stopped. And, there's plenty of artists, like, for instance, Eric Martin. He goes out and does Mr. Big. And when he's not doing Mr. Big, he's out, playing acoustically and playing with a couple of buddies from Trickster. I mean, everybody's doing what they like to do.
Right. And how does it feel to sort of, be able to, do different things? You can do the Slaughter thing. You can do your own thing. You can do the shows with the other bands you've been into. Like back in the day, everybody would kind of center around just their main band. But how does it feel to be able to do all that?
Yeah, I think that what happened with that is everybody's like, you have a band, you just had this whole thing, we're going to do what we do and we're going to rule the world. And there was just camaraderie because you really fought as a band in it. And I think that now, what you're seeing a genre that fights together to keep the genre. Again, you can, I could call Stephen Pierce and say, hey, dude, we're going to go, I'd like to do this. I think this would be good. What do you think? You can call different people and make it happen. When before it's like, no, dude, I'm doing Rat and Rat only. It's just, we're all, again, this is the music business, not the music fun, but at the same time, it's very, you got to be mindful of how you do it, and you also need to do it in the side of that it doesn't negate everything that you've built.
These days, you're still making music, doing solo stuff. How do you sort of, get keep the passion alive to be able to make new music when a lot of older bands also feel like no one's going to care about new music?
Well, there's a point where there's a lot of people that don't care about new music. And I'll never forget, I went and saw Paul McCartney play. He played the Silverdome in Las Vegas when we were just kind of coming out of our, the second record. It was, and Paul McCartney does a song from the Beatles. He does a song from the Wings, and he goes, and now I've got a new one for you. And the whole place sat down and ran out and bought a T-shirt, or went and got a beer. And I just realized that it's really built on the songs that connect to people. And why they connect is that whole wheel that somebody really emotionally gets attached to it. And the Beatles, obviously, and the Wings and all that stuff was emotionally something, that they're attached to. Sometimes there's an audience that just really wants to go on this nostalgic basis as opposed to something that's, new and relevant. Oh, that means so much to me. People don't even really give it the time anymore to hear something new because they just want to go about their day. And, again, it's attention deficit society because people are just kind of scraping the frosting. They're not getting down to the cake. And they really don't want to. And, that's okay. I mean, you just got to realize that's just the way it is.
Do you feel like here in, in 2019, when you're doing shows, do you feel like, your crowds are receptive to the songs that you play that aren't Fly to the Angels or Up All Night?
Well, with Slaughter, I'll be honest, with Slaughter, we play the hits. We really don't. We did a tour with, with Ted Nugent and Quiet Riot and a whole bunch of us, Warrant and all of us were out there doing it. And we realized that, you play something new, people just kind of, they'll bob their head and they'll be into it, but they're not passionately singing because they don't know it. So what do you do when you've got songs that have a deep meaning in people's lives? You play the songs that connected. I mean, it makes for a better show. It's kind of like if you went and saw the End of the Road tour with Kiss and they played all new stuff, people would be pissed. I wanted to hear, Detroit Rock City. I wanted to hear this. I mean, you got to know who you're playing to and understand that the key point of this is we're in the entertainment business. I say this all the time. We're in the entertainment business, which means to entertain, it's not a thing of saying, here's a talent contest and here's a new song. And if people are open to it, they'll find the music, or you can do a song, much like Paul McCartney did. But still, even with people who have that deep catalog, people want to hear the deep catalog.
To kind of rewind a little bit, what kind of a kid were you? How did you first get into, when did you want to first be a musician?
It's funny. Music was always a constant in my life, that I always listened to songs. I always listened to music, and my recall of even the music that I grew up with as a kid is kind of crazy. It's just a part of who I am. I always, if I was on the swing set, I'd be singing. If I was riding my bike, I'd be singing. And then, as I got older, there was I was going into the fifth grade. I know exactly what it was. I was going into fifth grade, and they were having choir tryouts. I'm like, choir? Oh, that sounds like fun. It's music.
Right. So
they do a thing where they listen to your voice, and the teacher's like, man, you got a great voice. And was like, really into it. And the funny thing is they didn't do it with the piano. They did it with acoustic guitar. This is the early 70s. So they were playing like nylon string folk guitar, much of like what Led Zeppelin and, does, the folk side when they just break down to acoustics.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Well, my sister bought me a guitar from Mexico, and it was impossible to play. I mean, it was an inch off, the strings are an inch off the fretboard, but I still learned to play it. I still fought to play it. And they were like, wow. They called my parents and said, this guy, this kid really wants to play music and is doing things that, we can't even play that guitar. Get him a real guitar for, $50 or whatever. And so they got me a guitar, and I started learning that kind of that folk style. By the time 7th grade hit, there was, all the rock and roll stuff had started to infuse in my life, and I wanted an electric guitar, and I wanted that for jazz band, and I wanted it to be able to play, rock stuff. So pretty much around 11 years old, I started, really playing guitar and accompanying my voice, but I really got more into guitar than I even got into the voice at that point. And I really was a guitar player, a guitar teacher, until I got the call to be the singer for Vinnie Vincent. And I, put the guitar down, and the rest is history.
Was joining Vinnie Vincent Invasion, was that like, the first break that you ever had in the music industry?
Oh, absolutely. As far as being in front of people, I mean, I played clubs and did the things that, most musicians do. And, I was a guy that would set up the whole PA system and drive all the stuff there, and not enough time to go home and shower and wash off in the sink and then do the show and then tear everything down and get it back. It's just how we did it then. So, in the side of that side with Vinnie Vincent, yes, it was my first real gig, but I was driven. I wanted to do it. I'd do anything I could in any side of it to make it in this industry. And when I got the call to, hey, we're going to go do this, and we need a singer, and the funny thing is it was with Alice Cooper, and I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. So my first show as a lead singer with Vinnie Vincent was in front of thousands of people with Alice Cooper. Wow. And we ended up doing that, and then we ended up doing Iron Maiden. Came back, and the funny thing is that people don't realize, once again, we put the band Slaughter together. The band had never played live as a band, and we did rehearsals. All the songs were made in the studio, and the first time we played live was with Kiss.
That's crazy.
And we did the show, and the crazy thing is MTV was there, and we go to our dressing room. There's the CEO of the company, as well as the president of Chrysalis, Joe Keener and John Sykes. They're the two gentlemen from Chrysalis, and they handed us gold records on our first show.
Wow!
And I was like, you know what? This is going to be pretty cool. I mean, we knew we had a good ride at that point.
Right, with those stories, sort of like having a couple of instances where you just being like thrown into the deep end, live performance wise, sort of, what was your thought process, when realizing, oh shit, I'm going to be like all of a sudden in front of all these people at this big show opening up for these big bands?
Well, the thing that you do is okay, this is my shot. Do I go out there and just kind of do it? Do I, go out there and really, you just, like you said, you just get thrown in the deep end and you just swim as fast as you can. And, that was one thing that I learned is pacing as I've gotten older in music. It's the pacing of how you run a show. You don't have to just completely, just plug in and light up. There's a calm that you learn. I mean, I learned it from Ozzy and from Paul Stanley and all the entertainers. There was a point where you just go, okay, you can just walk out and just be you. And when you get that comfort to where you feel like everybody's in your living room, it's a totally different thing than when you're walking out there when your heart's beating and going, oh my God, this is killer. You know, you get a different feel as a performer.
When you were talking about, you know, everything that you did, you know, before joining Vinnie Vincent to sort of break into the industry, you know, bringing gear and everything, you know, in your experience, what sort of like timeless advice, you know, would you give to anybody trying to break into any sort of, you know, avenue of artistry?
Well, I think that if you're an artist, you make art. You know, it's the same reason why I'm doing, you know, solo records. It's not like I said, you do it because you still have a love for it. You still have a love to make, to make that. And, you know, if you still have a love for it and there's a honest passion there, then you'll continue to make art. When it becomes all about a paycheck, then it's really not art. Then you really lost the whole meaning of why you started it in the first place. It's like the love of, for instance, Led Zeppelin, when I went from learning folk guitar into understanding how, you know, Jimmy Page would do his phrasing or chords and stuff. It was, you know, it's a love of that. It's a love of understanding that. It's a love of how that music also, as you're learning it, also becomes a part of your life.
Looking back at your time being a part of the Vinnie Vincent Invasion, what really sticks out in your mind about that time?
You know, it was, you know, I was a hired frontman. And so I felt like I was on the grill every time I went out there. You know, it was not like something where I joined a band and said, yeah, I'm in a band. I mean, it was, you know, it's kind of like that Hired Gun movie. You went out there and, you know, but you feel like you're replaceable. And, you know, it wasn't until about halfway through the Iron Maiden tour that I felt like, oh yeah, I got this. Because again, I had my confidence. I understood, you know, working a crowd. I was with, you know, two frontmen that are, you know, amazing, Bruce Dickinson and Alice Cooper. I mean, that was kind of, that was the guys around me at that time.
Right. Wow.
So, you know, I learned a lot from, you know, as a 21-year-old to go, okay, now how are they doing this and what do they do? And, you know, really looking at it through, you know, the side of the stage eyes of, you know, how do I have that? How can I be that good?
Right.
You know, you never stop learning. You never stop honing your craft. Anybody says, yeah, I know how to do that, I don't need any help, is really just shortchanging themselves, because there's always something you can learn. There's always something that you can do that's going to make something better. Right. And you know, I strive for knowledge. You know, I still, in my age, I'm still, you know, when we get off this phone call, I'm going to pick up my guitar and I'm going to work on a couple things that are uncomfortable for me to play, but it's the same side of learning something new.
Between Vinnie Vincent and Slaughter, you've always had Dana Strum right there by your side. You know, what was it like working with him?
Well, Dana has always been the big brother. You know, he's always been that guy next to me, and has been a dear friend for many, many years. He's a very, very good businessman. And he's got great ears, and he's got great intuition. So I think that one of the things when I first met Dana, it's funny, we've only touched one time on this in an interview, the two of us talking, but we both knew that if we were together doing a project, that it would be successful. And I walked in to do backgrounds on a project he was doing called Sin, which is Rick Fox's band. The guys in Black and Blue, Tommy Thayer, who's a current guitar player of Kiss, was there. It's the first time I met Dana. And Dana, you know, at the end of the night, when everybody else stopped singing background vocals, here I am standing in front of a microphone in the studio where Thriller was tracked. And I'm just going, you know, man, this is surreal. And I knew that if I had him on the other side of the glass, And that if the two of us were ever working on even my own stuff or anything, I knew that something would happen. And he knew this guy's, he's indelible. He keeps coming back with fire. He knew I had fire in me. And I think what I mean by that is you have a desire to get better, a desire to do it better each time, desire to learn and to grow and to grow. And, there's a lot of musicians just like, yeah, man, I know. And it's, to me, it's always listen, always evaluate, and never discredit anybody's opinion or thoughts, and then grow by that and become better.
Yeah, during your time,
certainly that's what Dana's, what we've discussed over the years is,
right.
We both knew that.
Yeah, during your time with Vinnie Vincent and Onto Slaughter, you were somebody that had a very unique voice and a very good look. Women always, thought you were a very beautiful man. Did any of that ever sort of, get in the way of what you were doing? Did you ever let that affect you?
No. I was always, I never thought, you never go, oh man, I'm this. I think that all I ever did was try to think of how can I make this music better? I mean, I certainly chased the girls. That was, other people were doing drugs and everything else, and I certainly loved the ladies. But in that, I think that again, it's a desire to grow in your business, which is your music, and to make your the music business successful, you have to work at it. It's not a given. Just because somebody's really good, somebody doesn't just hand them a bunch of money and say, I think you're great, here's millions of dollars. There's always some type of stipulation that's the end of your money. There's always something there that in business is never that Cinderella story. It's, you just have to work hard at it.
Outside these bands, I did read, something very interesting is that over the years you've done a lot of voiceover work for television and movies and sports outlets. Mm-hmm. Talk more about that. What's some of the biggest things that you've done in that sort of realm, and how did you get into doing that?
I was always a goofball and imitated things, and there was a friend of mine named Jess Harnell who was and still is an amazing voice actor, and he's the one that kind of, hey man, you should do this, or hey, he was already successful working on many voiceover stuff, Animaniacs and stuff. He was one of the lead roles on it, and he got me in on it. And then later I did commercials. I did some voiceovers for Mattel, and it's funny, like the Saturday morning the commercials that I used to see as a kid, I find myself doing a few of those and being the exciting guy to make, the Thunder Roller racing game exciting for people, but it was like, it was really cool. I mean, it's a great avenue. I like doing the voiceover stuff. And then I got into doing, again, it's just, for me, it goes far left, far right. And then I ended up doing music for Fox Television, which is just sports bumpers and music, and that stuff's still being used today, and in between games and stuff like that, it's just nothing but guitar music, right. And just real heavy rock band stuff, or there's a couple jazz things I did. So it's just making music, and again, it's kind of weird. You do the music for television, it's like nobody knows it's you, but you're still able to make music, still be musical, and step out of the boundaries of what people would think that you would do, because you can at that point. Nobody's really looking at the face and likeness to match it. Oh, you don't do that. You don't play jazz. Well, I do on a couple of Fox bumpers,
Yeah, like during, definitely during, previous, decades of music, a lot of, there's a lot of musicians that would just know how to be in a band. But how does it feel to be able to just have it reconciled in your mind that you could do all these other things, that, may not even, people, like you said, people might not even know you do, but you just still be able to be an artist and contribute to all these different things. How does that sort of feel in your mind?
Well, to me, it's very fulfilling to me to be able to do other things. Again, to produce other bands, and there's a band called Rivershine out that has a country band that I produced, and they've got a track in on radio right now. It'd Be My Lover, and it's like there's The Lover, I think is what they call it, and I've done those tracks here at my house, in my studio. I worked with a band called Stereo Fuse years ago, and really loved doing that. And that was kind of like when there was the songs, more about songs and kind of folky thing, but alternative, and I played bass on the record and produced the record with these guys, and I had a blast doing it, but it never really saw the light of day. And it was just because it didn't see the light of day, do I like it less? No, I really enjoyed making that record. The guys had some great songs, and it was good stuff. It's just, sometimes it connects and sometimes it doesn't.
Right. What sort of advice would you have to anybody these days who, just to have that sort of open-minded attitude to, other forms of, other avenues of artistry that they could sort of pick up like you did, aside from maybe their main thing that they're working on?
I think that there's no rules in music, especially today. So, I mean, it's like, it's almost become more of a streaming, music is streaming now more than it is, music is streaming is not about selling product, because the CD is ending. People are not really noticing it, but it's just slowly going away. I mean, it's not, CD-ROMs are not in computers. CD players are not in cars anymore. It's become a streaming, digital world. So there will be no product except for the vinyl enthusiast. Right. And, that's kind of strange, because now you're selling something that once you sell it to one person, they could give it to 10 of their friends. So, now it's the music industry at this point is changed financially. That's kind of odd,
Right. What are you doing these days? What sort of projects are you working on currently?
Like I said, I'm doing I have a new song I'm putting out with this guitar player named Mike Hamill, and it's just very old school rock and roll. It's just very good times. It's really about driving and doing something that's really, really, thank you. It's really about making music that's upbeat and makes you feel good. Because that's really, ultimately, that's what you're trying to do as an artist, is to resonate to people one way or another. And certainly in that side, I think the track's got that. But it's going to be a complete digital download. It's not going to have, I'm not planning on doing any physical product, because I don't think that's there anymore.
Whether it's the new stuff or, stuff from your past, how do you feel like the music that you make can resonate to the crowds of 2019, especially, the world that we're living in right now?
Well, I think that, for what I've done, I come from a lot of history of this music, so I can dive back into, the bands that I toured with, and dive back into where I came from. And people have that common thread because they were there. For new music, I mean, I don't know how new music is discovered. It's just kind of one of those things that things are discovered and becomes like more of a buzz on the internet than something that really moves product. So, I don't know. I don't know the industry right now. I really don't. I don't worry about it anymore. I don't try to, this is how it's going to work. This is how you make money. I think that you just do what you do. And and have a love for it, because I think that's the most important part of anything that a person would do in their job is find something they love and do it.
And, we kind of, talked about it before, but I always still like to, to a certain extent, but I always like to ask this question is, what's a sort of a nugget of knowledge from your entire life or career that anybody listening to this, no matter, what they do, could sort of project into their own life?
I actually put it in one of my songs a long time ago, which is, what you think of me is none of my business. And that's that you don't worry about what people think about you, that you just be you. And I think that if you start just being comfortable with who you are and not trying to conform to be something you're not, honesty is certainly the character that people understand and know. So, I've always been the kind of the guy next door type thing. I didn't really try to put on a rock star facade or anything else. I just love rock and roll. I just love music. I love the spectacle of playing shows. And I think that, my advice is find something you love. And if you love doing something, then do it. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as there's something that you really enjoy, and if you're happy, that's all that matters.
Do you feel like, throughout all the bands that you've been in, all the attention, all the, popular albums, do you feel like, for the most part that you really stuck to your guns all those years?
Yeah, I do. I think that, when it wasn't cool, to do what we do, we were still doing it. And, I think that was one of the things that was a conscious thing to go, well, what are we going to do? I mean, as a musician of a working music business, you go, what are we going to do? And then you just go, okay, well, we're going to do what we do. And I think that, you look at everything as the piece of the pie. There's a big piece of pie, and you look at what percentage do you belong in that pie. And if it's 1% of that big pie, that's still pretty good of a big pie. You don't overthink it. You just try to do something that you think will fit, but also doesn't degrade who you are or what you represent.
Just to kind of, finish things off, when it's all said and done, what do you hope your legacy is?
I haven't really thought about that. I think the key point is that in music, it's the space between music. It's the rest between. It's the thoughts between words. It's the things that matter. And I think we get so caught up into the words that go by or all the notes that go by, and we don't really think of the spaces. I think the spaces are very important. And in mindfulness, I think that's the one thing I hope people would find is that peace and that space, because that's the most important part of life itself. I need to belong. So I hope that someplace in the music they find that peace, they find that place that they escape to, because that's really what music has always been for me. It's been my escape.
Nice. So
I just hope that they use that soundtrack and make it a part of their lives. And I'm just I guess you look at it as almost a poet and a musician at the same time, because that's what we do. But I don't overthink about what I'm doing. I just try to have some mindfulness in what I do, and at the same time, I try to keep the party rolling. It's a kind of a very crazy balance that you try to do. You try to keep the party going at a concert, but at the same time, you got to have these moments that matter. And I think that's what we have done thus far, in music.
Great. All right, Mark, it's been great talking with you. Like I said, I've been a fan since I was 9 years old. The Stick It To You album.
That's great.
Stick It To You
album. Where are you located at? Where are you at?
I'm in just outside of Detroit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have a couple things that I'm going to be up in your neck of the woods. I have a scrap metal thing that I'm doing up there, and there's also I think there's a Slaughter gig up in those parts too.
Right.
And I'm doing the benefit concert for a gentleman who's got cancer. So I'm just doing that off the radar as well. So, I mean, that's what you do, you know.
Right, definitely.
So at some point if you know I'm around, just get in touch and we'll take care of you.
All right, great. Where can people go online to get more information about what you're doing?
Well, obviously it's the typical, you know, social media things of the official Mark Slaughter, I should say Mark Slaughter official, and also www.markslaughter.com, slaughterusa.com. And that's the best place to find the dates and find out where I'm at and what's going on. And we try to be as current as we can on that stuff, but it's kind of one of those things that, you know, I don't live completely in the internet, and I proudly, you know, say that I don't I don't graze over that and people's thoughts of things. I just really try to be a part of the world more than that. But
right,
that's the best place to find it.
All right, great, man. It's been great talking with you, man. Thank you for taking the time.
Same here. Look forward to seeing you at a show. We'll definitely take care of you.
All right, thank you, man.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for your love of the music. I really do appreciate that.
No problem. Have a nice day. So that was my interview with Mark Slaughter. He was so awesome to talk to. Like I said, it was a bucket list interview. Oh, man, I'm still excited that I got to talk with him. I'm definitely going to be checking him out when he hits Michigan later on this month. And, you know, there's going to be links in the show notes for this episode at freshasthepodcast.com to where you can follow Mark Slaughter and check out all the tour dates that are coming up for Slaughter. Looks like on Sunday, the 28th of July, he will be with Slaughter at the Token Lounge in Westland, Michigan. And guess what? I'm going to be there because I've never seen Slaughter live. And like I said, I love Slaughter. All right. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.